Have you ever looked at someone and thought you had them all figured out? As if it were easy to label people, to understand them, to judge their story at a glance. But what if that quiet person, the one who moves at a different pace, is actually carrying battles you'd never suspect? And what if, one day, your path crosses theirs again, not as strangers, but in a way that could change everything? This is a story of two lives that unfolded in completely different ways. One moved loudly, the other silently, and yet they were destined to meet again, transformed by time, by pain, and by the quiet power of becoming who you're meant to be.
In her second year of high school, Letitia often felt like time moved differently for her. While some students breezed through assignments, she was still reading the first line. While classmates chatted about tests and grades, she quietly packed up her books and slipped out unnoticed. She didn't stand out. She wasn't the loud one in class. She didn't shine in debates or make the teacher laugh. To most people, she was just the quiet girl who always seemed a little lost. But no one ever asked why things seemed harder for her. No one saw the pages filled with notes in her worn-out notebooks, or the nights spent trying to understand what came easily to everyone else. Lucas, on the other hand, was the opposite. He moved through school with ease, confident, talkative, always surrounded. He had a quick sense of humor and was naturally liked. He never meant harm, but his comments sometimes landed in ways he didn't notice. To him, Letitia's quiet nature was simply curious, a small detail in a bigger scene. But to her, those passing moments of comparison, the subtle reactions, they left impressions. There were no harsh words, no confrontations, just silence. And silence, too, can leave scars. Letitia never spoke up about it. She simply kept going. What looked like slowness was actually depth. She didn't memorize things. She needed to understand them, and that took time. While Lucas thrived on momentum, Letitia moved with quiet persistence, unseen but steady. And even if no one noticed it then, that quiet girl was already building something no one else could see.
What most people never noticed was that Letitia had dreams too. She wanted to understand the material. She wanted to do well on exams. Most of all, she wanted to feel like she belonged, even if she didn't shine like the rest. But when you live under constant comparison, even the smallest mistake can feel like proof that you're not enough. And that pressure, though silent, grows heavy over time. At home, she worked twice as hard. Sticky notes filled her walls with formulas. She watched video tutorials, built colorful study maps, and reviewed everything over and over, alone. Some days, she felt defeated before she even began. But there was something in Letitia that no one quite saw, a quiet kind of strength. She didn't complain. She didn't give up. She kept trying in her own way. She rarely asked for help, maybe out of pride, maybe out of fear, but she never stopped showing up. What looked like confusion was really determination. She wasn't slow, she was deliberate. She didn't race, she observed, reflected, and then moved forward. Lucas continued to glide through life with ease. Letitia, on the other hand, was moving against the current, slow, steady, and deeply rooted. And though no one saw it yet, The foundation she was building would become stronger than anyone could imagine.
Years passed, as they always do. High school faded into memory, and the paths of former classmates stretched in different directions. Lucas seemed to be thriving. He got into a well-regarded university, landed a job at a creative agency, and his social media was filled with highlights, travel, achievements, celebrations, always with a smile. To the outside world, everything looked perfect. Letitia, on the other hand, seemed to disappear. She wasn't present in college reunion posts or tagged in group selfies. She didn't show up at gatherings. To many, she became a name forgotten in the yearbook. But while attention followed Lucas, Letitia was quietly rewriting her own story. She enrolled in prep courses. She took entrance exams more than once. Eventually, she was accepted into a program that felt aligned with who she was, something that made sense to her nature, her strengths, and her way of seeing the world. She wasn't chasing a title. She was following a feeling that perhaps she could become someone who made others feel seen. In this new path, her sensitivity was no longer a burden. It became a strength. She began to stand out, not for being the loudest, but for her ability to observe, to listen, to hold space. And while Lucas moved from spotlight to spotlight, Letitia was slowly building something far more lasting, a way to bring calm into chaos. On the surface, Lucas was still moving upward. His schedule was full. His career was advancing. Online, his life looked curated and flawless, full of momentum and admiration. But something beneath the surface had started to shift. It began with restless nights. Then came the quiet anxiety, small, persistent, a sudden tightness in the chest during meetings, an emptiness he couldn't quite explain. He tried to brush it off. Tiredness, he thought. It'll pass. But it didn't. The highlights kept coming on social media, but behind the filters, the colors were fading. Friends noticed subtle changes, moments of withdrawal, less laughter. But Lucas was good at maintaining appearances. He was used to performing, to staying composed, until one day, everything stopped. In the middle of an important presentation, his thoughts scattered. His mouth moved, but the words didn't come. His palms were sweating, his pulse racing. He excused himself and rushed to the restroom, closing the door behind him. Alone, facing his own reflection in the mirror, something cracked. He didn't see the confident face from these photos. He saw someone tired, overwhelmed, unraveled. That night, for the first time, he allowed himself to admit he couldn't do this alone, and maybe he never truly had. Lucas eventually agreed to try therapy. A friend had suggested someone, said she had a different way of listening, that her presence alone made it easier to breathe. He booked the appointment, half skeptical, half desperate. When the day came, he walked into the room without expectations. But what he found there stopped him cold. Across the room, sitting calmly in a soft chair, was a woman with a familiar presence. It was Letitia. Older now, composed. Her posture quiet but confident. Her eyes gentle. The same Letitia who used to sit silently in class, often overlooked. She welcomed him without hesitation. There was no shock, no confrontation, only a quiet professionalism that instantly softened the tension in the air. Lucas sat down, unsure of what to say. He felt exposed, uncertain. But she simply listened. No judgment, no rush. He spoke slowly at first, then more freely. He shared his pressure to perform, his exhaustion, his growing fear that everything he'd built was paper then. And as he opened up, something shifted inside him. It wasn't just the relief of being heard, it was the realization of who was listening. The girl he once barely noticed, the one he misunderstood, had become the one person capable of truly understanding him, not because she remembered the past, but because she had learned how to hold space for others the way no one had done for her. Lucas didn't need forgiveness that day. What he found was something more powerful. Someone who saw beyond the version of him that the world applauded and met the version that needed healing.
The first session felt unlike anything Lucas had experienced. There were no interruptions, no rushed conclusions, just a steady presence, a calm space where he didn't have to perform or pretend. Letitia didn't fill the room with advice. She allowed silence to speak. And within that silence, Lucas felt something he hadn't in a long time: safety. As he continued talking through the following weeks, he began to lower his guard. He spoke about the weight of expectations, the fear of being seen as weak, the endless pursuit of success that never truly satisfied him. And in her presence, those fears felt less sharp. Not because they vanished, but because someone finally held space for them. At one point, Lucas paused, reflecting on everything. He recalled how different they had once been, how much he had misunderstood her, and now how much he needed exactly what she had become. Letitia never brought up the past. She didn't need to. Her kindness wasn't performative. It came from understanding what it meant to feel unseen. Her strength was quiet, unshakable, the kind that comes from walking through shadows and choosing not to carry bitterness forward. Lucas didn't leave therapy fixed, but he left changed. He had come searching for answers and found something deeper: humility, connection, and healing born from the very silence he once overlooked. Life doesn't always teach through loud moments. Sometimes it waits quietly, and when the time is right, it brings us back, not to punish, but to reveal how much we've grown. Lucas had walked into that room seeking help, but he left with something far more lasting: perspective, not just about himself, but about others, about how much strength can exist in stillness, about how deeply someone can change without ever needing to prove anything. Letitia didn't rise in the traditional sense. She didn't chase recognition. She simply followed her own rhythm. And when her path finally crossed again with someone from her past, she met it with grace, not revenge. She had become everything she once longed for: a calm in the storm, a place of quiet understanding, a reminder that no one's value is defined by how quickly they arrive, but by how deeply they grow. For anyone watching this now, maybe there is a Letitia in your story, someone you once overlooked, or someone quietly carrying a weight you never saw. Or maybe you are Letitia, moving through the world at your own pace, hoping to be seen. Wherever you are on that journey, never forget. Never underestimate someone's silent struggle. The person you overlook today might be the one you need most tomorrow. And when that moment comes, may you have the wisdom to recognize it and the heart to be grateful. If this story touched something inside you, don't let it stop here. Take a moment to reflect. Who in your life deserves to be seen more deeply? And how can you choose kindness even when it's easier to look away? If you've ever felt like Letitia or like Lucas, know that growth is always possible and connection starts with understanding. Subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart. Share your thoughts in the comments. We read every word. And if you know someone who needs this message, send it their way. Because sometimes one story is all it takes to change how we see the world.